And then we'll go ahead and get started just so that I can be respectful of your time. My name is Dr. Jamie Foister. I'm full-time faculty here at Missouri Southern. I teach half of our literacy courses, half of our early childhood courses, and then some other random courses as assigned. Um, I am really excited about the Literacy Summit, and I'm glad that I get to be the first one out the gate. And I'm really excited that you are here to join us today. Let me make sure that my phone is on silent so that it doesn't interrupt us. You would think I would have done that before, but my anxiety is telling me I didn't. So here we go. All right. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of people joining us in the chat. Excellent. That is so exciting. So our Literacy Summit is made possible by a generous grant. So I'm hoping that with lots of participation, we'll be able to do this again, and it won't just be a one-time thing. I hope that you can stick around for some of our other breakout sessions. And I'm super excited about our keynote speaker with Dr. Carol Tolman this afternoon. So I hope that you're able to join us for those as well. So today I'm going to share with you some information about phonological awareness. We're going to do just a basic review first, and then I want to share some activities that you might do with your students to help increase phonological awareness. My contact information is on the screen there, so if you have any questions or want some more information about anything that I'm sharing today, please feel free to email me and I will promise to get back to you just as soon as I possibly can. Here are our learning outcomes for the day. I want to make sure that you leave here being able to identify and describe the components of phonological awareness. And we're also going to use some hands-on activities to promote increased phonological awareness at the elementary level. My idea when designing this presentation is that you already have a base knowledge of phonological awareness so that this isn't an introductory lesson, but I do want to go ahead and review the components of phonological awareness just so that we're all on the same page from our working memory. Okay, so why is it so important? Those of you who are in letters training are going to already know why it's so important. Our phonological awareness scores are not great, and it is a huge predictor for what our students already are able to do with reading. This quote came from Dr. Kilpatrick, and he wrote that reading problems can be prevented if all students are trained in letter sound skills and phonological awareness starting in kindergarten. And then Moltz and Tolman in our letters manual quoted that at least 80% of all poor readers are estimated to demonstrate a weakness in phonological awareness and or phonological memory. Readers with phonological processing weaknesses also tend to be the poorest spellers. So as early childhood educators, we know the importance of phonological awareness. That's why we spend lots of time with rhyming songs and rhyming books and reading aloud to students. Unfortunately, we tend to stray away from phonological awareness as the students get older. And research is showing that our students who are struggling at those later grades are still deficient in phonological awareness. So we need to make sure that we are incorporating that all the way through for our struggling readers. All right, here's kind of my roadmap and my plan for the day. We're going to first review the components of phonological awareness, review phonological awareness from simple to complex, and then we'll start working with individual phonemes, specific activities to promote phonological awareness for more advanced readers, and then we're going to round out with syllable types because those are where we're going to spend a lot of time working with our more advanced readers and our struggling readers at those higher elementary levels as well. As we go through, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them into the chat. I won't be monitoring the chat throughout my presentation. It's just too much for me to manage. But if we have time at the end, I would be happy to answer some of those questions for you. And so let's go ahead and get going. All right, so I wanted to quickly share the components of phonological awareness. And rather than just listing them off for you, I wanted to find an infographic to help you visually see what those components are. So phonological awareness is this huge umbrella that takes into account words, onset and rhyme, phonemic awareness, and syllables. So we'll be looking at a little bit of each of those today, and activities that we can do to promote each of those. All right, I want you to take some time for yourself to look at these activities that I've listed on the slide and determine for yourself what is the most simple task, where are we going to start with readers, all the way to what is the most complex. So we're going to put these in order from simple to complex. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that on your own, and then I'm going to ask you to help me sort them through the chat as well. Okay, I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to finish that up. Okay, I'm a big component in the one who does the work, does the learning. So I'm not going to just sit here and talk to you this whole time. So somebody either turn your mic on and tell me, or put in the chat, what do you think the most simple of these tasks might be? Be brave. Okay, I'm seeing counting words in a sentence. Seeing lots of people say counting words in a sentence. You are correct. That is the most simple of the tasks, counting words in a sentence. Excellent. What would come next? Isolating sounds, counting syllables. I'm seeing some of my students enter the chat. Thanks, ladies. I appreciate it. Rhyming words. All right. The next most complex is counting syllables. What's going to come next? Rhyming words. Isolating sounds. The correct answer has not been shared yet. Any ideas? Okay, the next thing that we're going to ask students to be able to do is segment syllables. So they can count the syllables in the word, and now I'm going to ask them, okay, what was the first syllable? What was the middle syllable? Or what was the last syllable? Excellent. What do you think the next? Oh, I just gave away the answer. Identifying first, little, last, and middle syllables. All right. What we'll do one more. What do you think? Let's skip. What do you think is the most complex out of these? Very good. Man, we have some smart students at Missouri Southern. Well done. The most complex out of these is going to be manipulating sounds, and that includes adding, deleting, and substituting sounds. Excellent work. You should be proud of yourself. Good job. All right, here's the chart just to kind of summarize it for all of us. So, counting words in a sentence is the simplest, and we move down all the way to the most complex. And take a minute to look over that for yourself. Some of this chart kind of surprised me because one of the first things we ask students to do is come up with rhymes. And you can see on this chart that generating rhyming words is pretty complex compared to some of the other tasks. So we want to make sure that we are starting with those simple tasks and moving to the most complex. All right, let's talk about how we can promote phonemic awareness in early readers. This is the thing that tends to come most naturally. We tend to do phonemic awareness activities with students from very early on, even in their preschool years. Even parents tend to do these types of activities at home. So let's go ahead and review those real quick. The first thing is words in a sentence. And you might remember from your letters training, those of you who are in letters, that when we signal words in a sentence, we're going to signal with our arm and very big motions because words are bigger components of language. So, for example, if I wanted to write the set, or if I wanted to segment the words in the sentence, Micah kicks the ball, then I might start with my arm and say the first word, Micah kicks the ball. That's the first thing we're going to do is isolating those words in a sentence. The next thing we're going to do is counting syllables. And there's two tricks that I would share with students. You're probably already familiar with these, but the two tricks that I would share with students are clapping the syllables. Although clapping tends to get confusing for some students, if they can't already isolate syllables, you'll have them clapping things that don't really make sense. So if I wanted them to clap the syllables in water bottle, of course, we want them to say water bottle. But students who don't understand how syllables work yet might do things like water bottle and try to count those, or they might clap the words water bottle. So we need to make sure that we come up with a different way. Now we know that when we make vowel sounds, our jaw drops and we open our mouth. So I would always teach students to put their hand underneath their jaw and count the number of times their jaw drops. Water bottle. That can be a lot more efficient for students to learn how to do it that way. The next thing that we work on is onset and rhyme or rhyming words, breaking apart that onset and rhyme and coming up with rhymes. A really great way to do this is to read a rhyming book and pause and let the students share what the rhyme might be. And then finally, we'll move to working with individual phonemes. When we're working with individual phonemes, um, so I showed you the signal for the words in the syllable or the words in the sentence. When we're working with individual phonemes, we're going to tap the sounds in the word, and so that's a much smaller motion. Let's take a minute to pause, and why don't you add any activities in the chat that you use with your students or that you've seen used in your practicums maybe that might promote phonemic awareness with those early readers. Humming the words, excellent. I'm not sure what zap is off the top of my head. You might have to teach that to me. Heggerty. I'm glad you said Heggerty. That was on the top of my head as well. We're going to mention Heggerty as we move forward, but this is what I used definitely when I was working with my second grade classroom. We would use Heggerty every single day because it builds in a lot of those activities and makes them routine. So students get used to doing them over and over. Elkonin boxes, we're going to talk about that a lot as well. Perfect. Using a mirror so students can see how their mouths are making the words. Very good. Thanks for sharing. All right, let's talk about how we have students working with individual phonemes. So I found this chart, and this really helped me picture it a little bit better for myself. And that is how we move things from simplest to most complex. So we're going to use this chart over the next few slides, but think about how we can do each of these tasks in their simplest form and then moving forward. All right, phoneme isolation. So tapping the sounds is one thing. I've already kind of modeled that for you, and I need to remember that I have to tap them backwards. The reason for that is because as you're looking at me, you want them to be tapping them in the direction that they would read the word. Well, I read the word this way, but they're going to be reading the word this way. So I have to remember to tap the word backwards. And that's one of the hardest things for me to try to remember. The second thing is picture sorts. Remember, when we're working with phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, we're paying attention to the sounds, not the letters in the words in the beginning. So we want to make sure that we're asking them to sort the sounds that they hear and not the letters. And then finally, Elkonin boxes. There's an example here of Elkonin boxes. This one does have the letters attached, but you would definitely start with just tapping the boxes for each sound and then add in the letters as students get more proficient with that. So you'll notice on the chart that phoneme isolation is the simplest of these activities. So that's where we're going to start with students. We're not asking them to do anything with them, just isolate those phonemes. A tip for you is to make sure that you begin with isolating the beginning sound. That's the easiest sound for students to hear. So if I ask them what the beginning sound is in the word tap, it's the easiest for them to understand the t sound, and then go with the ending sound. Students are really going to struggle with the middle sound to begin with. So let's make sure that we're giving them a task that they can do. Start with the beginning sound and then the ending sound, and then move to the middle sound. You want to save things with that in the third place in the word. For example, in the word sand, save that N isolation for one of the last things that you're going to do with phoneme isolation, because that's a very difficult sound for students to hear and to isolate. They're automatically going to go add instead of and. So you have to be really explicit with that. All right, so the next thing that we're going to think about is blending. Once we've figured out how to isolate the sounds, we're going to practice blending them together. My little bonus daughter, those of you who know me know that I have a 7-year-old in second grade. And this was something that she really, really struggled with that last year and the year before. She could isolate the sounds all day long, but she could never blend them back together. So when she was reading, she could read the word zap, for example, but she could never put it back together to make the word zap. Some tips to help with this are those oral blending and segmenting routines. Haggerty uses those a lot. So practicing those every day and every time you get a chance is really going to help. And then go back to the Elkonin boxes. So once we've tapped the boxes, now let's practice the arrow at the bottom and blending that word back together. Some tips for this is make sure that you're beginning with words that have an onset and rhyme to get students used to blending the sounds together and taking them apart. So rather than isolating each individual phoneme, let's start with isolating just the onset and rhyme. App, app. Also remember that it's important to know that not all words are going to have an onset. For example, the word at doesn't have an onset. So we need to make sure that we are paying attention to that as well. Finally, make sure that you're not adding sounds to words. This is a huge pet peeve of mine that I first picked up when I was teaching young students English who lived in China. As American English speakers, what we typically do is say B says ba, B says ba, 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 right? But when you try to get students to blend a word back together, for example, let's blend the word cat, ata. Ka'ata isn't a word, so it's going to be really difficult for those students to blend that word back together. So make sure you're clipping those sounds when you model it for students and also correcting those sounds when you have them saying those words. Make sure that they're saying k real nice and sharp, and then the t real nice and sharp. So it's k, at, and they can blend that back together a lot easier. All right, so moving on up the chart, the next thing we're going to ask students to do is going to be adding, deleting, and substituting sounds. I really liked doing word chains and word ladders for this. Now, I put a picture of a word chain up here, but I would do this verbally. We wouldn't be doing this on paper. Remember, we're talking about the sounds in words. The thing that's important to remember when you're creating a word chain for students is make sure that you're just changing one sound at a time. So if we look at the one under week 1 here, going from map to mad, they're just changing the ending sound. Going from mad to sad, they're just changing the beginning sound, and so on and so forth. Heggerty routines are really good for this as well. So make sure that we are incorporating those adding, deleting, and substituting of those phonemes when we're doing our Heggerty routines. Don't forget, just like with everything, we're moving from simple to more complex. So if we are just introducing this type of activity, having them change the beginning sound is going to be really easy for them. Or having them delete the beginning sound will be easy for them. So I might do something like take the word map, now say map without the m. So they're deleting that m sound, the m sound, and they're going to say app. Then I might have them go ahead and add something onto the beginning. So rather than having them delete and substitute at the same time, I might do it one step at a time. So let's go from map to app and then change app to sap and so on. You can definitely use nonsense words here. Just make sure that you are helping students recognize whether they're nonsense words or not, but that can be done at the same time, or it can be done in later activities where students are giving you maybe a thumbs up or thumbs down if they hear a nonsense word. All right, let's talk about phonological awareness with more advanced readers. Now, when I designed this activity, I wanted it to be more heavy on this side because, like I said, the beginning levels of phonological awareness are going to be the easiest for us to remember. With more advanced readers, we're going to be talking about and identifying syllable types. The easy way that I always teach my students to remember syllable types is using the acronym CLOVER. So closed, consonant LE, open, vowel team, vowel consonant E, and then the vowel R word. So let's talk about each of those. A closed syllable is a syllable that has 2 or more consonants that follow a vowel sound, like the syllable ack, for example. This is the most common syllable type. In our letters training, we found that most of our words, sorry, excuse me, I'm tripping over my words first thing this morning. 43% of the English language has words with a closed syllable type. So we're going to teach that first. And with each of these, we have a hand signal to teach students as well. The closed syllable type is going to be a closed fist. And this was really eye-opening to me. The closed syllable type can be spelled all of these different ways. So we can start with a vowel, just a single vowel and a single consonant, all the way up to 3 consonants, a vowel, and 3 more consonants. So pay attention to all of those different syllable types. I'm sorry, all of those different spelling patterns for this closed syllable type. All right, the vowel consonant E syllable is the second most common. For that one, we do the 2 symbol or the V symbol with our fingers. We often call these the silent or bossy E, and there is going to be a long vowel sound with this syllable type. This is the second most common syllable type, so we teach it second. That was a vowel consonant E syllable. I'm looking at time and we're going to run out of time, so I'm trying to go through these as quickly as we can, but I can share this slide presentation with you as well. Open syllables. These are syllables that end with a long vowel sound and they're spelled with one vowel. This is the third most common syllable type, so we teach it third, and the hand signal is just an open hand. Then the vowel team syllable, we have 2 vowels that work together side by side, so the signal is 2 fingers put together. I just said 2, but it definitely can be 3 or 4 letters that represent one vowel phoneme. It's important for us to recognize that it's not always just vowels that are part of this vowel team. So if you think about the word right, R-I-G-H-T, that IGH is representing the I sound, so that's a vowel team, even though it's made up of a vowel and 2 consonants. These can be short, long, or diphthong sounds, and we're going to teach this syllable type fourth. The vowel R symbol or syllable is next, and we do that with a sign language R. Notice we typically would call this an R-controlled vowel. In letters, we change it to vowel R because the vowel is going to come first in the spelling pattern. The vowel is followed by the R, which impacts its sound, and we're going to teach the syllable pattern fifth. The consonant LE syllable is the next one. We use the L. Consonant LE is found at the end of multisyllabic words. It's always unstressed, and we're going to teach that sixth. All right, so now I have an activity that I'd like you to do with me, and we're going to sort out the syllables that are on the screen. In order to make this user-friendly for our virtual presentation, I went ahead and created a Padlet. So I'm going to go ahead and share that Padlet in the chat. If you would go ahead and go to that Padlet, and we can work together to sort these syllables into their different syllable types. Just a second to copy and paste the settings. Okay, and there is the Padlet link in the chat. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen for those of you who are watching this virtually later. You guys are good. You're already sorting away. Nice job. Very good. Just looking over them quickly, are there any that you disagree with that you think should change? All right, I'm going to move this L-E-Y because in the word, it makes the Lee sound, not the consonant L-E sound. So consonant L-E, think of words like people. In this syllable, L-E-Y is going to say Lee. So the E-Y is going to be a different syllable type. That's a vowel team. All right. The next step that I would ask students to do then is you're going to make words with the syllables that you see in front of you. So feel free to move some syllables around and let's see what kind of words we can come up with. Yeah, I'm seeing stable, people. Ooh, somebody got atmosphere. Nice. Extremely. I think that might be spelled wrong, but that spelling pattern works. I think the Lee belongs with something else. Water, thunderstorms, nice. Spouted, tornado, weather. Quick time check. Commonly, oh, we're so close. Common, alley, Donita. What are we going for with Donita? There we go. The dough needs to go with tornado. Let me help you out. Unite. This is a word, but that E in unite wouldn't be a syllable all on its own. So what else could this be besides unite? There you go, united. So let's get the E out of there. You've got almost all of them. There you go, area and inform. Well done. You guys are so smart. Well done. Actually, this one is water spout. Okay, so looking at these words, then what might you predict that our text is going to be about? Let me go back to my chat. What might you predict our text is going to be about? Yeah, it's going to be about the weather. So what I did was I took, and this would be an activity that you would do with students, I took all of the important multisyllabic words and I broke them apart so that students could figure out what the words are. They sorted them based on syllable type so they could practice reading them first. Then they made the words. And then based on the words they made, I can have them predict what they would, what they would be reading about. All right, so let's go on to what we would do next. Make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Okay. So they've done the syllable sort. The next thing I would ask them to do is just what I asked you to do, which was build the words. So we built the words, and then we would practice applying those words. So we talk about the meanings of some of them. I might tell them the water spout is like a tornado that forms over water. Then we would predict what our text would be about. And you guys did a great job with that, saying that our text was going to be about the weather. The next thing I would do is I would actually give them the text and I would have them just highlight those words that we found already. So tornado, weather, water spouts. area, all of those words. They're going to highlight them within the text, and then we're just going to read just those words. That way, when they go to read their actual text later, they know, oh, I've already read that word. That word's tornado. Okay. The next thing that they're going to do is actually read the text. And then we're going to discuss the meaning of the text and always bring it back to comprehension. We're reading for a meaning, not just to be word callers, right? All right, so here's the text that it came from. You were right, it was all about weather. There was Tornado Alley, tornadoes, water spouts. And this worksheet goes on to talk about nonfiction text features, but I just wanted to share it as a way for us to show that we can do these activities with some of the things that we already have. We don't have to recreate the wheel. All right, the final thing I wanted to share with you today is this website called Florida Center for Reading Research. I've shared the link here, fcrr.org, but honestly, every single time I go to it, I literally just type in the Google search Florida Center for Reading Research, and it brings it right up. The reason why I wanted to share this one with you today is because this was an activity that we would do often, or that I would use often when I was trying to find activities for my students. Let me make sure I'm sharing the correct screen with you here. Find activities for my students to do specifically to whatever their needs were, okay? So on this website, there's all kinds of great things for teachers, but this FCRR Student Center activities was where I would typically go every single time. So I'm going to find what they need, what grade level they need, and then the skill they're working on. So we've got all kinds of phonemic awareness activities here. And then when you click on the actual activity, it's going to give you the directions, but then it's already made for you too. So if you're not already using this in your school, I hope that you can start, because this is an excellent resource for you to use. One of the things we did in my school was that as we made them, we would put them into a learning library so that teachers could go and get them and not have to remake them every single time we use them. So that's a really great resource for you as well. All right, let me go back to our slideshow. All right, I want to wrap up our talk today with just a quick little exit ticket, but we're going to go back to the Padlet to do it. So let me share that Padlet with you again. Actually, if you still have it open on your screen, it's just going to be on the last page of the Padlet. And if you don't still have it open, it is still in the chat. All right, so what I'd like you to do on this final page is tell me something that you already knew, something new that you learned, and then a question that you still have. Oh, good. Haggerty routines. So if you're not already using Haggerty, you can actually find these things as YouTube videos that you can go through with your students. The actual book is like a lap size book, and it's pretty expensive. But if your school has some funds, I would recommend purchasing them, because it is very helpful for students to practice those routines over and over. The sound of Y, E, or ya. I don't know what the question is. Is the sound of Y, E, or ya? Okay, so if you are segmenting a word, like the word yellow, then don't worry about the actual letter. You're looking for the sound. So in the word yellow, we're going to segment Y, E, O, right? If the word is alley, on the other hand, the Y comes at the end of the word, and it's making the E sound. It's never going to be ya, though. Can you think of a word where the sound that Y makes is ya? So be very careful with not adding that sound at the end. Modifying for SPED and ELL. So with your SPED students, it's probably going to be written into their IEP how you would do it. But you can definitely just break it apart and just do pieces of it at a time. So work for a while on just counting the words in the sentence. Work for a while on just isolating the beginning sound and move on from there. Ooh, songs and chants. That's a really great question. And I am positive that if you looked on YouTube, you'd be able to find them. I don't have any off the top of my head, but I'm sure that you'd be able to find them. Good question. All right, so it's almost 10:45, so I want to go ahead and wrap up our time together. But I want to go ahead and bring up our initial screen again so that you have my email address so that I can answer any questions that you might have. Go back to the beginning. Okay, let's share that screen. Okay, so my email address is there on the screen. It's just foister-j@mssu.edu. I wanted to take a minute to thank everybody for joining us today. These presentations will be available to you through video after the fact, everything except for our keynote speech. Also, if you want the slides that I used today, just as a reminder, or if there's something you missed, just send me an email. I'd be happy to share that with you. All right, thanks for being here today. I will see you later.